Today we'll be making an In Loving Memory shirt, and these are perfect for the rest in peace and memorial designs that you may need. This is a template for you, so you can change out these designs in 5 minutes or less. This is perfect for those with loved ones who have recently passed, or even for holiday gifts for those who want something to eternally memorialize their loved ones. So I want you to think about this not just as a funeral shirt, but also as a holiday gift as we are quickly approaching the holiday time. Let's go ahead and get into the design here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change out our main photo here, and all of this is AI generated artwork. If you're not with us in AI in Action class, I don't know what you're waiting on. You should go ahead and come to class. We generated all of these pieces of artwork right in class. All right, I'm going to go ahead and change out my photo number 1, and what I'm going to do is go all the way to the top and just do a quick change of these photos here. So I'll double click photo number 1. And you'll see I have an alternate image there for you to change out and use as an example as well. And then I'm going to go File, Place Embedded. And I'm giving you a few files just like what we're using here for class, so that you can go ahead and use these exact images, or if you have your own images because you generated those, then you may use the images that you brought in. Now I am going to remove the background here, bless you, in Photoshop. So I'm going to make sure that the layer is selected. I'll go over to the object selection tool here. Then I come to the drop down, go to cloud, then select subject. And this one got the angel without the wings, and we have wings in the template in case your image does not have wings, but I want to go ahead and select the wings. So I'm going to hit here and see if it understands that I want to add the wings to the selection, and it did understand it quite well. I think that's good. I'll go to select and mask so I can see if maybe possibly that needs to be cleaned up. I'll zoom in a little here by hitting Control+. And I do see that I have a little too much data right here, so I'm going to go to my minus sign up here at the top and just kind of brush that out a little bit. And for me, that is good. Now what we'll do is go ahead and tell it, okay, it's going to output this to a selection. We can also make it output to a layer mask, so we'll go ahead and do that. So boom, that created our layer mask. If you forgot to do that very last step and you have the marching ants around it, then you can just hit the rectangle right here with the circle, and that's going to allow you to do the layer mask that we just did there. So let's go ahead and bring our little one up here. I'm going to increase the size. I don't want anything clipped off on the side there because it will not show on the next phase. Now I'm going to turn off the image before, and then on here I can go to this layer mask, and I want to fade off the area at the bottom so I don't have any hard lines there. And I am adjusting to about 400 pixels here. You could also come to the top for a soft round brush, 400 pixels, or right now this is exactly 371. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that black is selected as my foreground color, because black conceals, white reveals. And I'm just going to take away a little bit of that data down there so it has a nice smooth transition. I'll close out and hit yes to save, and instantly that's in there. Now I'm also going to go ahead and change out the photo number 2 and 3, and I just have one photo, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an image where I show you basically how we can do the pop out of the frame as well. All right, I'm going to turn off the previous image here. File, Place Embedded, and I'll grab my second image. Now my second image, I'm not really concerned about getting the wings there. I'm more concerned about getting the pose here. So when I do my background removal, I am just going to see if I can just hit remove background here, and if it does the job. If not, then I will make sure that I do the step before where I do object selection and then tell it to use basically the internet. All right, this looks really good here. On the layer mask layer, not on the photo, I'm going to use my black to paint down here at the bottom with a soft round brush, and that's going to fade that off there. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to actually take this very same photo and show you how to do the accent pop out of the frame. So I'm going to double click, open that accent, and then I'm also going to double click and open photo number 3, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to have him turning to the right instead of the left. So I'm going to do Control T, right click, and flip it horizontal. And then what I can do is I can take this same thing. Before I flipped it, I should have put it in there, but I'm going to duplicate layer and go ahead and put it inside of my accent image there. Now when I close out of this and save, we'll see that our little one is facing the other way now. And I'm going to go to photo 3 and the layers there just so I can move it around a little bit. And here we can go inside of the frame and create an image just like this. If you want to see how that was created, you can actually go to Lady 3 and create it inside of there instead, which I think that's what we'll do. Let's go ahead and put this. We'll duplicate this layer into the Lady 3 frame. That way it's already done for us. And here I'm going to rasterize this layer just to make it a little simpler. I'm going to rasterize it and apply the layer mask so that all we have to do is worry about how we want to pop out of the frame. And this one, we don't even have to do any work as far as popping out of the frame. But this is how I like to do that. I like to bring a version of it below the frame, bring a version of it above the frame by holding down Alt, click and dragging a duplicate. And then what I'll do is I'll see which parts of the image I want to hide. Obviously I want to hide this part down here at the bottom. So I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to click the frame. Then I'm going to take my brush here, make sure that I have a layer mask on here. And what it did essentially is it put the layer mask on the outside here because I already had it selected. I'm going to deselect and undo that so I can show you how I should have done it. As a matter of fact, I'll just delete this layer, the layer mask. Now, what I need to do is have a fresh layer mask already on there. So then that way, when I hold down Control and I select my frame, the active pixels are selected here. When I go to my blank layer mask, I can then paint on it with black and paint away anything that I don't want to be popping out. So let's say that I wanted this particular piece of hair to be behind the frame and this hair to be on top. I would leave this alone and then paint black here. All right, so that's how we do our little pop out feature there. Really simple. So I'm going to close out of this now, say yes to save. And then I do not need this layer here now. We are good to go. And now I can choose whether I want to use the frame image or I want to use the watermarked image here. And I can do either. I really like, even with both of them, that looks really good. Now what I want to do is I'm probably going to change the direction. I'll leave the direction of his face because that actually looks really pretty, even repeat it there. Now what I have to do is for the photo 2 that's previously there, I'm not using a photo 2 in this design. As you can see, I only have 2 images rather than 3. So I want to show you that just because you see something with 3 images, you can absolutely do your own thing and not have to worry about creating exactly what you see on the screen. Okay, I just want his face to be fully visible there. And let's go ahead now and change out the background here. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and we have a basketball court. And I'm just going to rename that. It just says b-ball court, so you'll have that already in there. And right on top of this layer, so I want to make sure that I have the layer selected, I'm going to go File, Place Embedded. And this one, I'm going to do two different backgrounds so you can see the difference here. I'm going to start with this kind of whimsical woods here. And what I want you to notice is that it's going to be a little short for what I needed. So what I'm doing right now is kind of placing it about where I want it to be to give me good visualization on the sleeves and in the main area. And I'm going to turn off this color layer here so you can see what I'm talking about. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this with the AI feature in Photoshop. So I'm going to go to my crop tool here, hold down Shift and Alt. I lied, hold down Control and Alt. And I'm going to bring this out a little bit here. And then that way it can help me generate some of the image here. So I'm going to grab my rectangular selection here, grab the inside of the image. Then I'm going to hit Select Inverse. So everywhere that there are no pixels, I've grabbed a little bit of pixels around my image. And I'm going to hit Generative Fill, and I'm going to see what Photoshop can help me create right now by imagining what's going to go on outside of this area here. All right, beautiful. Now I have some options over here to show me what Photoshop gave me some little bit different variations of the artwork here. Now I'm not happy with this line at the top here. So what I'll probably do is regenerate that area there just so I have a better and smoother transition there, even if I'm not using that stuff up top. So what I'm going to do, I like this one. I'm going to right click and I'm going to merge it down. And then the area that I'm not so happy with, I'm going to reselect this area and tell it that I want to generate something different for that area. All right, and this looks good, but I'm probably going to need a little more imagery to the left and right. So again, I'm going to go to my crop tool. And this time I'm going to hold down my Control and Alt. Oh, let me merge down this feature of the sky that I want. I think I'm going to go with 1. It looks a little more seamless there. Let's merge that down. Oh, I know what it is. I have my ratio up here on 1:1. I was wondering why it kept giving me a square. Let's just hit clear there at the top. That way, when I hold down my Control and Alt, I can just pull it out widthwise. There we go. Now I hit Enter to lock in that crop. And I'm going to select just one side at a time. Let's generate there. I could have also hit Select and selected both sides. But I feel like sometimes when I'm generating the AI artwork in Photoshop, it does not give me a higher level result when I'm doing both sides. Okay, this one looks good. Number 3. If I don't like something, I can regenerate. But literally, this is just for the outside of the shirt where the sleeves are, so that we just have some data over there. You're not going to see anything pretty much but the sky, because the shirt pretty much cuts off right there. But you could maybe put some socks on the side there and capture some of that image when you're sublimating. All right, I'm going to right click and merge down for that layer. That way we just don't have a whole bunch of AI generation on top of one another, because that will slow your computer down. All right, I'm generating the right side here now. And let's see, the first one looks good. I think the second one looks best. So I'm just going to right click and merge down. Now when we close out and hit yes to save, we have a bigger image that has more data there. And I'm going to show you how I created this look where the roses are in front. Now your image may not be able to do this right now, so you'll still be able to use the roses. And in fact, before I change anything out, let me show you precisely how to use the roses or the orchids that are there. So we're going to go to our foreground accent. Our roses are there, and we have a layer of color on it right now. So I'm going to turn the layer of color off just so that you can see where the roses are. We can change this color. So this theme, I'm going to be borrowing some colors from the background image, but we can just as easily change those roses from purple to teal to orange or whatever your theme is here. What I'm going to do right now is just go ahead and turn it off for a moment so we can see our woods here, and I really love this image. So what I'm going to do is I want to bring some of those flowers from the background to the foreground. Now, or to the foreground, not the foreground. This is not a task you all will be doing in class, because more than likely you may not have an image that has a separatable foreground and background. However, this is going to be extremely helpful for all of you. So what I would do is I'm going to duplicate the background layer. Then I'm going to hold down Control and select both of the variations of the background right now. They should have not moved at all. They should be in the exact same place. Then I'm going to link them. That way when I bring the front one all the way up to my foreground layer, so I'm just going to drag it up until I see my foreground layer that we were just talking about on top of those roses. Now this image is where I can cut out the background. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it all the way to the front, like literally to the very top, so that when I edit it, I can see what I'm doing. And then I'll bring it back down to that layer I was just telling you about. So here I have a clear depiction of everything. I see that I'm falling a little bit short here. Now keep in mind that this image is linked to the layer underneath of this exact same look. So if I move one, it's going to move both of them, and that's it. That's exactly what we want to happen. Now I want to pay attention to my focal point here. I want my rainbow in the image. I want a little bit of sky, but the sky isn't so important to me. But all of this beautiful imagery here is what I want to capture. And I'm going to pull it over just a little bit so I get it more centered. Now we're going to focus on trying to grab some of these flowers in the front here by using the quick selection tool. We can try the object selection tool, but when you use it and you try to hover over a space, right now what it's doing is it is kind of helping me separate the foreground and background. You see how it has the trees versus the background there, but I think it's giving me a little too much. So what I'm going to use is the quick selection tool, and right now I have a pretty large brush on. It's 223 pixels, and I'm just going to start painting some of the flowers. And no, I'm not actually painting the flowers. What I'm doing is using the brush to find parts of the image that I want to include. Now see how I'm not including everything in the middle here? Well, I don't want to include everything in the middle, but Photoshop obviously does. I can use my addition and subtraction selection to kind of get rid of this path in the middle, because what I want to do is essentially I want to create a little bit of interest on the left and right that looks like it's in front of my character. The same way this photography right now makes the flowers closer up bigger and the flowers further back are out of focus and smaller. I want to create that same effect in my design. So now that I have these selected, I'm going to go to select and mask just to make sure it looks cool, looks pretty decent. I can feather the edge here just a little bit so it doesn't have any kind of harsh look to it. But keep in mind the background is still going to be back there, so it will blend in seamlessly with whatever we have already placed there, as long as you keep them linked and you don't move them. All right, now that I have these pixels selected, I'm going to hit the layer mask tool. And look at that, now those flowers are on top. And I have the option here too, if I want to paint out some of the flowers because maybe they're a little too much in front of the name, then we'll see. But I think we're going to actually drag this layer down to where our foreground is, our other foreground image is. And let's pull down till we see it. All right, so those are the clouds, so I know we're getting close. If you have to drop it and then scroll a little bit more, sometimes that helps. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop this right here. And see how it's behind the clouds, behind the text, but it's still in front of some of my elements. So it gives me a little bit of dimension here. And what I can do with this, it has some levels on it right now. I want to bring this, turn the levels off. You can also recolor this. So let's say you wanted this to be a certain theme color. As long as you drop it right here in that folder, that's going to help you right there. All right, and I'm trying to see if I want to bring my clouds. I think I want to bring my clouds kind of behind here a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I'll put the clouds behind the image here. And then I'm not going to color this one because I actually like the natural color here. I'm not going to recolor this image, but you can also use the smart colors here to recolor your background image here. So now I'm going to use my color picker tool to select the colors, because this one's going to be bright and it's going to have some oranges and yellows in it. So I'm going to use my color picker tool here to decide. I really like that kind of sherbet orange right there. And then you can find your color one all the way at the top up here. I'm going to change it from the teal to the orange now. So I'll duplicate this layer, go over to my swatches. Since I used the color picker tool, my orange is right there waiting for me. Let's hit yes to save those changes, and let's see what it looks like now that it has the orange in there. Perfect. And then the other color that I want to use is this yellow, but it already has yellow in it, so I think I'm just going to leave that one just like that. However, you would change color number 2 the exact same way we just changed color number 1. And the other important thing is I'm going to turn on my template guides here so I don't get too crazy. I know what's going to print and what's most likely not going to print. And let's say, for instance, I wanted to see more flowers, because these flowers are really only going to show up in the larger sizes. So if I want to see more flowers in the foreground, then I can make sure that I go to that layer there, bring it in a little bit. And I still see my rainbow there. And now I realize I need a little bit more material down here at the bottom, so I'll just double click on it. Same idea as before, bring this cropping area down, use my rectangular marquee, get those marching ants where you just have a little bit of overlap there, and let's do generative fill and generate. And that's just going to give us something down there besides just having to put a flat color or just cut it off abruptly or even usually what I used to do is do a lot of gradients down at the fade off points. But now that we have generative tool, it looks a lot more convincing. What I have to do, right click, and I'm going to merge down. Now I can close out of this, hit save. And that's updated in my graphic here now. I'm going to also just check here to see if I have I'm going to change colors there. I'm going to go ahead and change out the text now too. So I have one on here that says in loving memory. That's going to be your most common. But I also wanted to include some alternates because that's going to be important for you, even for marketing your business. So this one, we're going to do forever in our hearts. That's another expression that's used often. So let's go to long. I just right clicked and click on the word long, and you'll see that there is in loving, and then memory is there as well. So you can put in loving memory if you want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the in loving memory to create another phrase, and this one's going to be forever in our hearts. And you have to kind of think. You have about 6 lines of text with every design, and you want to see how you want this text to play. So in loving, I can take this one, and then I'm going to duplicate it. I'll turn off the other version, and then I'm going to double click right here on the T. And this one is going to say, oh, you know what I'm going to do for this one? So this one is a difficult one that I'm going to go ahead and set up for you. A really popular expression, especially for young, like the youth and just anyone, well, anyone, because it could be at any age, but an expression is your wings were ready, our hearts were not. And sometimes people don't know how to really put that in terms of text because it looks really wordy. So let me show you how I would do that. So I would do your wings were ready, our hearts were not. So let me just type it out. See how I can get really wordy here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the shift tool to push it in. But that's going to look a little too squished, so I'll pull it down just a little bit as well. And then the same thing is going to happen with memory now. So when I go to memory, I'm going to duplicate that. Turn off the previous one, double click on the T, and this one will say our hearts were not. And again, I'm going to squish it first just so I can see. Sometimes it looks really ridiculous when you squish it, but at least you know what you're going to have to edit to get it to look visually appealing, and how far you can really push it as far as the stretch. Our hearts were not. Now this is if I wanted to just do a single line of text. You could also opt to make the first name and last name just in one line down here, and then you could put your wings were ready, and then your line 4, 5, and 6 can say our hearts, next line, were not, or are not, and then you can put the name on the last line. The reason I'm doing it like this is because you'll be able to just quickly go in here and change the text or the color because the text is already here. All right, I'm going to move this off the screen here so y'all can see. All right, and now let's go ahead and adjust our image. So for this one, the image that I have here, the accent image, I'm going to move, because when we have wordy text, we also have to now adjust the image accordingly. I can pull that down. And then I'm also going to grab my rainbow woods and pull that down, because that dark area, I don't care if it's at the bottom, but I want to see more of the light up here and more of that rainbow. There we go. Now I can take the text, "Our hearts were not," and hold down Shift, select the text, "Your wings are ready," and I'm only moving the text down here. And then for this image, for the photo, I just want to make sure that I can clearly see his face there and here as well. All right, so this is how you would do the top text if you want to change out the text completely. The colors look good in this scheme. You can also change out the colors here with the smart colors, or picking any color that you want there. Now I want to give you a hint. Sometimes you're going to have to adjust these levels, turn them off or on, depending on whether you have a dark or light color. So for this one, I'm going to turn the levels off because I really want that bright color. Same thing here where it says last name. There's a levels there. I can turn that off to get a little bit brighter of that orange. But of course, if you're doing a darker color, you're going to need to adjust the levels in order to get the intensity of the color that you want. All right, and this one is ready to go. There's a little Bible right here, which is an accent image, and you can change the color of that particular image there with your smart colors as well. And see how it just gives it that hue of whatever color's on top of it. But you can also just change it with whatever color you want by clicking here, and maybe I want to select the marigold color, and now the Bible's marigold color, and you can change that out. All right, and that was simple. It was super simple. So you're going to change out your photo. You're going to change out your text if you want to. Of course, you would have to update this based on your client. But then also you can change out the background. So if you are an AI class, or if you've already downloaded a background image from another source, you can go ahead and switch that background out and it would look totally different. And now I'm going to show you the feature where you can pretty much recolor your image with the smart colors that are here. So we can incorporate the, I'm going to disable the layer mask there. We can incorporate the hue and also change these blend modes to be whatever we want it to do. And of course, I would also suggest that you use the levels. So I'm going to create a levels layer here for you, because depending on how dark that image is, you may have to adjust the levels and intensity here to get what you want out of the color that's recoloring that background there. All right, so for this one, I like the original color of the background. The other one I did recolor, but this one I really like the blues in there. It just really looks magical to me. And all I'm doing right now is just making sure that all of our images are in place, cleaned up. I'm going to close up these folders for you all. And everything that you see here in the layers, you all will have access to. I also want to let you know that you have some wings there. So let's say that your image does not have wings on it. Then you have a selection of some wings here already ready to go. The images that we created in AI, we created them with the wings on there just so that it would give us some different looks. But you can absolutely bring your image in here and add the wings as an after effect. All right, so that is everything changing out. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep it simple, sublimators. You're going to change out your image, change out your colors, and change out your text. And just like that, just as easy as 1, 2, 3. Well, actually it's 1, 2, 3, 4, because you're actually changing out a background too. So as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to be able to flip these templates in 5 minutes or less. All right, my love. So that concludes this session. You all create some wonderful artwork, and I will see you in AI in Action class next, where we'll be creating some more artwork and then teaching you on Wednesdays how to incorporate that into your Photoshop templates and really get some extraordinary results that look like nothing anyone else is producing in your area.